We now return to Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute, the radio show discussing the honest truth about Illinois policy and politics. Here's AM 560's Dan Proft.
Dan Proft back with Jacob Huebert, senior attorney for the Liberty Justice Center. And Jacob, eminent domain isn't just for Donald Trump or the state of Connecticut against Susan Kalo anymore. We've got an interesting case right here in Illinois, in Chicago. Northeastern Illinois University, the Golden Eagles, won a 2-year-long bid to acquire properties on Bryn Mawr Avenue along the campus, where their campus is located on the northeast side of the city, in order to build dorms. But in order to build those dorms, they had to have the government okay them to seize people's private properties, including, for example, a business owned by Mr. Bill Tong that's been in the Tong family since 1954, a restaurant called Tong's Tea Garden. What do you make of this case as a constitutional lawyer yourself and the issue of eminent domain? There's one thing when you talk about government justly compensating people for public goods, a highway, a police station. It's another thing, isn't it, when private interests, and even though Northeastern Illinois University is, kind of public-private kind of entity, it's really this a case of a private interest superseding the rights of another private interest to the other private interest, private property, isn't it?
That's essentially what it is. You have a university pursuing its own agenda, and of course the university isn't something the whole public benefits from, right? It's not like a road we can all drive on. It's something that a handful of people who pay NEIU a lot of money can go to. So in that sense, it really isn't much different than a private entity. And then they're going to have private contractors build the things that they're going to put in place on the property they're taking, and they're going to have them run the things. There's going to be new private businesses in there. So there's a lot of private parties and essentially private parties benefiting from this, and the public isn't really benefiting much at all. So this really isn't the sort of thing that eminent domain is traditionally used for. Unfortunately, the courts, both federally and Illinois, let these kind of governmental entities like a university get away with taking property for pretty much anything they say they want to use it for. So fighting back against this is extremely difficult. I mean, the U.S. Supreme Court in the Kalo case you mentioned, they basically blessed taking things and giving them to private parties to use for private purposes. So if you can do that, what can't you do? And as a result, the door is open to all kinds of abuses, and we're seeing abuse here in Chicago with the NEIU situation.
Yeah, the Kalo decision, perhaps the worst Supreme Court decision in the last 50 years. And this is a good example of the post-Kalo world in which we live and in which business owners like Bill Tong have their business taken from them. Bill Tong, the owner of Tong's Tea Garden, joins us now. Mr. Tong, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Sure, thank you.
So give us the drill down on this case where Northeastern Illinois has been working for 2 years to acquire properties to build these dorms, and those properties that they wanted to acquire included yours. How did this shake out, and how were you compensated, or are you going to be compensated for the seizure of your property?
We are going to be compensated. We had to settle because we realized we didn't have the deep pockets that NEIU had. So we also didn't want to be the last to settle because we would be sort of backed into a corner, and it would be an unfavorable settlement.
And so, what was your reaction when did it take NEIU going to court, Northeastern Illinois University going?
Yes, it did. So but they took us to court from the get-go. They never negotiated with us.
So there was no overture made. They just kind of used the court to impose their will on you.
Their overture was a vaguely worded letter that nobody took seriously, and then all of a sudden, we and other business owners on Bryn Mawr Avenue found ourselves with a formal letter saying we were being sued under an eminent domain, and with NEIU as the plaintiff and us as the defendants.
And this is a property that has been in your family for more than half a century, right? So
since 1954, and my family had operated a predecessor restaurant on the same street down the block since 1947. So we've had a neighborhood presence for nearly 70 years.
And how does the decision? I mean, it's a court decision. It was really your decision because of the pressure. But still, how does this decision affect your family and affect your ongoing businesses?
Well, we ceased operating the restaurant ourselves in 1984. My father retired. My sisters and I got college degrees, and we got professional jobs. That's where he told us not to go into the restaurant business. He did because it wasn't the right time in history for him to get a college degree and pursue work that way. So, but he rented out the restaurant. He was able to take early retirement, and that was the bulk of his retirement income. The income from the tenants who operated the restaurant when he could no longer operate it himself. But what this represents, this eminent domain seizure, it's a gut-wrenching emotional blow. I am the son of Chinese immigrants, so I knew something about how the cultural expectations from the Chinese culture is a son is supposed to preserve the accomplishments of his father and hopefully improve on them. This restaurant, Tong Tea Garden, and later renamed Hunan Walk, represents my father's life's work. It represents his father's life's work. I grew up in an extended family, and I knew my grandfather for my first 21 years. So this was his lifetime achievement, his lifetime work. That's what NEIU has taken from us: the ability to preserve that and to manage it, or as we see fit. But they took that away from us.
Bill, before this all came up, did you have much of an opinion about eminent domain? Had you thought about it before?
I had not really thought about it in personal terms. Where I knew that, and my view of eminent domain was probably like the mainstream, where it was associated with something like building a highway or because in Chicago we had the expressway construction, and I know entire neighborhoods were raised in order to do that. So I knew it was controversial, and I know that University of Illinois, my alma mater, where I got my bachelor's degree, did the same thing.
So what's your view of eminent domain now and eminent domain policy? Has it changed?
Well, I do not like it. Illinois has one of the worst eminent domain policies because it's so stacked in favor of the moneyed interests.
And what kind of neighbor was Northeastern Illinois University before their decision to build these dorms and pursue the condemnation of other people's property?
Northeastern Illinois, we had business from the individual faculty there and the students, but as an entity, we had no formal communication with them. Although my father did mention to me when he was near the end of his life that Northeastern approached him with not really a serious proposal, but they proposed, to buy his property, but they said, "Well, let me think about it," because he wasn't really ready to sell. And
in terms of the compensation your family is receiving for your property, one of the complaints often in these cases is the federal government or some other proxy that's using government comes in and really tightens the screws such that you don't truly get market value for your property. There's an appraisal, and then even the government's appraisal that they try and lowball. What's been the experience with your family?
Well, this has certainly been the experience with Northeastern. Northeastern gave a very lowball estimate. It wasn't even accurate because it was not done with any of our permission. I mean, they didn't even come on the property. It was a flyby. They didn't even assess the size of our lot properly. We have a little bit more than 1.5 lots. So I mean, they didn't size it properly, and of course, it was lowballed quite a bit. And so we retained an eminent domain attorney who worked on a contingency fee, and he negotiated a much better settlement for us.
But at the end of the day, you would prefer to still have dominion over your property, all things considered.
Yeah. I mean, it was my father's wish that we keep the property in family hands for as long as we could, because it was his legacy, and we tried to honor that. But that's not possible now. So that's It's emotionally devastating for me.
Yeah, I'm sorry that happened to you and your family. Bill Tong, thanks so much for joining us and telling your story. We appreciate it.
Thank you.